Today we're going to be going over 7 ways that you are currently wearing your fragrances wrong and how you can fix them. Yes, I understand the title of this video may make it seem like there is a right and a wrong way to wear fragrances, like it's super cut and dry. The reality is, no, there's technically no right and wrong way to do it. But as someone like myself who is a fragrance enthusiast and someone like you who I would imagine is also a fragrance enthusiast or at least someone who has an interest in it, you know, in this position that we're in, you want to make sure that you are getting the most out of your scents, especially if you're buying a lot of them and you're spending a lot of money on this hobby. If you're just your average guy who doesn't really care, just has a couple fragrances to wear every day and that's about it, there's really no right or wrong way. You really can't mess it up. But if you're subscribed to this channel and you're invested in this hobby, I'm going to be going over some things that you may be doing that could be improved upon. Now, this first one doesn't really apply to us. It actually more so applies to the normal everyday guys out there, just your typical dude who doesn't really have too much of an interest for the hobby. He just wears a cologne to smell good. And this one is that you're using way too many sprays. So mostly for the enthusiast side of things, we don't have to worry about this too much because we're usually not guilty of this. But for the guy who doesn't really quite know what he's doing and he thinks you have to spray on 100 sprays of something to get noticed, you don't need to do that. You don't want to go crazy. You don't want to max it out. If anything, you want to err on the lighter side if you aren't for sure about the scent or about fully what you're doing and how much you're projecting. But you just want to try to avoid making yourself known as the cologne guy who always wears way too much and you're giving people a headache. That's never really a good thing, and if you get labeled as that guy, that's probably going to follow you around. Even if you still wear cologne but you dial it back, people are probably still going to call you the cologne guy, and it's not really what you want. Now, the second thing that you may be doing wrong, and this does apply more to people like myself and probably you watching as well, that is that you're not really matching your scent to the time of year. So there are definitely fragrances that are best in summer. There are definitely fragrances that are best in winter and everything else in between. And while, yes, the manufacturers and the designer brands of these fragrances don't sit here and tell you that it can only be worn in summer or in winter, you still kind of want to coordinate it a little bit, and it's the same with your outfits. People who are really heavily invested into style will do a good job of matching colors and different styles of outfits and that sort of thing. People who don't really care will just kind of go ahead and do whatever. And it's a similar thing here with fragrances. If you're really invested and you're building up a collection, at some point you're going to want to start paying attention to the different types of fragrances out there and the seasons and the temperatures that they work best in. Something like Killian Black Phantom is a fantastic smelling fragrance for the winter time and the fall months. Summer and spring, not so much. So it's things like that that you really want to start to pay attention to after you start building up a collection and you get more invested in this hobby. Third thing that you can be doing wrong, and this kind of does apply to everyone, and that is that you're not applying your fragrance to pulse points. So really, essentially what this means is you want to be applying your scent to hot areas of your body. So where you have a pulse point, where you have blood running through your veins, that produces a lot of heat, and that heat then transfers into stronger projection from your scent. It helps to open it up. It works better with your skin, and that's how you get the most projection and performance out of your fragrance. If you're applying to areas where there's not really a pulse point, not a whole lot of heat, you're not going to be getting the maximum benefits that you could be getting. And this is something that a lot of people may not think about if they're new to collecting or just new to cologne in general, but it's something that is important and you will notice a huge difference, trust me. Next up, we're going to be talking about not matching your fragrance to the occasion or situation that you're attending. So this kind of is similar to the season and the weather type of thing, but it kind of is one step further than that. Let's take, for example, summertime. Now you have to narrow down a summer fragrance, and then on top of that, you also have to narrow down, okay, am I going casual? Am I going formal? Am I going semi-formal? Is it going to be a date? You know, what's going on? And then within that, you have to go ahead and pick out the perfect fragrance for whatever situation that is, along with the season. So for example, a summer evening date fragrance is going to be a bit more challenging because normally a date fragrance you would want to be maybe a bit more sweet and seductive, but sweet and seductive doesn't always work in summertime. So you can really go down the rabbit hole here, and I'm not expecting everyone to go that deep, but it is nice that if you're going to the grocery store to wear something casual and fresh and likable, and if you're going to something more formal, to make sure you match that with something that isn't going to smell like a tropical beach fragrance, but more like a gentleman's well put together, refined type of scent. You can just go at it at the simplest way like that, and you can leave all the nitpicking for people like us, or at least like me. Now this next one is opposite to the first point of this video, and that is you're not wearing enough sprays. So you're probably like, oh my gosh, you just told me not to wear too many and now you're saying that I'm not wearing enough. It is a fine line. It is a balance, and this type of balance is achieved through experience. No one who just gets into collecting fragrances and wearing fragrances regularly is going to get this down immediately. It takes time, it takes experimentation, and it also varies from person to person, and also, of course, from fragrance to fragrance. There's some weak fragrances out there, there are some potent fragrances out there. Some you may need to do 8 or 10 sprays to get noticed, others you may need to do 1 or 2. Like there's that much of a spread. You got everything across the board. So it's all about knowing your collection, knowing your scents, and also knowing your skin chemistry, along with knowing what the weather around you is doing. If it's hot, the scent is going to project more. If it's cold, it's going to be a bit closer to the skin. All of this is stuff that may sound, a bit challenging and a bit overwhelming, but it just takes experience. It just takes time. You'll get the hang of it before you know it. Now this next one here isn't so much about necessarily wearing the fragrance, although it does correlate a little bit if you just give me a second here. But this one is that you're not buying scents from discount websites. So again, this isn't quite like the other tips, but what it does come down to is if you're wearing that fragrance that you bought at full retail, at some point, if you like it, you're gonna run through the bottle. It's going to be empty and you're going to buy another one. If you're looking at an $80 fragrance and you keep rebuying it and rebuying it, that's going to get expensive. And I'm using $80 as just kind of the typical retail price for designer scents. Some can be a bit more, like $100, some can be even a bit less, but generally $80 will kind of go as the average. What if I told you that you could get that same fragrance for half the price, or even a greater discount than that, $30, $40 on discounters? With a lot of these brands, that is possible, and it's still 100% authentic. I'm preaching to the choir here for a lot of you guys, I'm sure, but if you're new to the fragrance game, discounters, places like Fragrance Net and Fragrance X are lifesavers to make this hobby much more obtainable and affordable. Those websites will be linked down below. Discount shopping is the way to go. And again, the products are still new and authentic. You're just able to save a ton of money. And the last one we're going to be covering today that you may be doing wrong, and this one is the most important by far, and that is that you're just not enjoying it. If all of this stresses you out, if all of this just sounds so overwhelming, then you want to kind of also think about this. You want to think that your fragrance or fragrances are here to serve you. You're not here to serve them. Now, I've talked about this before briefly, but essentially what this means is, you don't want to be bending over backwards for your scents and trying to figure out, okay, I can only wear this one for this, or I can only wear this one for this. All the things I talked about here are more or less guidelines, and they're things that as an enthusiast you're going to want to pay attention to. But if that sounds like overkill, if that sounds like too much and it makes you want to shy away from this hobby, just walk away knowing this: your fragrances are here to serve you. Doesn't matter what the temperature is, doesn't matter what time of year it is, what situation you're going to. If you like the scent, just grab it and wear it and have fun with it and enjoy it. If all of this other stuff starts to take away from the whole experience for you, then it's time to look at it at face value and realize that it is just a cologne, something you spray on to make yourself feel better. And when you look at it that way and take all of the other things aside, it's kind of a relief if you're a bit overwhelmed. So always keep that in mind. If at any point you're not really enjoying it and you're getting frustrated because you're trying to figure out what to wear for when, and it's a lot of information to take in at once, just relax and enjoy your scents. There are many great fragrances out there, and realistically, most of the colognes that are being released now in 2019, 2020, 2021 are very versatile, and a lot of these can be worn for about anything. We're getting a bit more mainstream here. We're kind of going more towards the modern men's woody type of smell. Things like Dior Homme 2020, that type of thing can be worn anytime, anywhere. A lot of signature scents and very versatile scents are being put out. So guys, that's going to do it for me. That is 7 ways that you may be wearing your fragrance wrong and how to fix it. Let me know down below, what are some things that you've been doing wrong or you think you've been doing wrong, or things that you've you've been doing right that you didn't know you were doing right? And what are some tips and tricks that you have for people to apply their scents? Let us know down below. That's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you tomorrow with another one. Take care.